All right, people. So these are basic brushes and sponges. We're going to talk a little bit more about which one is the right one for you and when. So we're going to take off these sponges first. We'll come back and talk about those later. All right, so these are our 5 basic size brushes. This is a 1.5 inch flat. This is a 12 flat, 10 round, 4 flat, and 2 round. So we're going to start off by talking about this biggest one. Pros and cons. Pros, paints a lot really quickly. Con, can be hard to control and very difficult to wash out without getting paint or water everywhere. So, easiest thing to do is to color mix and paint a background with this. So, let's give a basic example. So I'm going to get some basic paint and I can paint really quickly with this. Then I can easily take another color and do some nice blending for a sky with it and keep going back and forth. And notice how quickly it paints because it's gigantic. The only issue, again, is that it's really difficult to wash these out successfully. Alright, so there's my biggest brush. Alright, so the next thing, and you have to wash these out between colors, just like any other brush, is the flat. So flat brushes, and I'm going to talk about both a little bit in tandem here, are best for painting straight edges. Because they have straight edges for you to paint. So when you're picking between these two, obviously the larger one you want to pick for larger areas. Smaller one, smaller areas. It's pretty simple. So I'm going to take this, load it up with the paint. Now, one thing I want to let you know is it's much easier to blend with a large brush. You don't get nearly as bad of paint strokes, and it's much easier to make a smooth transition between one thing and another. Alright, so that's pretty much my tirade on big flats. Alright, so next thing is going to be rounds. Here, I'll talk about the little ones. Little ones are if you have like maybe a box that you're trying to paint in. Alright, so here's your box. And you really want to, well, first of all, for this big of a box, you want to use this one because it's way big enough to actually fill it in. But say for instance you have a really small object, small, difficult to paint in. It's really hard to take a round and paint straight lines because then they're just going to kind of go all over the place. So what you have to do is you have to take your flat and load it up just like anything else and really let the paint do the work. So now notice I have a glob of paint here. I need to go back and I need to wipe some of that off, because I really want to let the edge of the paintbrush do all the work. So, edge of the brush. You manipulate your brush so that you're turning it and you're rotating it. So, see, I'm turning my brush, letting the edge do the work, pulling it down, and really letting the paintbrush be the straight line that I need it to be. Alright, pretty simple. And then you can use those corners to just kind of straighten it up. Alright, so our next one is our round. This is obviously for painting round things. So, say for instance I'm painting a shoulder, okay, and that's someone's arm down here. Alright, sorry about the bell. So I have my paintbrush, and I'm again going to let the paintbrush do the work. So I'm going to take my paint, and I'm going to use the curve of the brush to either push or pull paint along that curve. See how I'm doing that? Pulling the paint. I don't really have, it's okay that I have this long straight line. I can still use the side of the paintbrush to help me. But you're really making sure that you're letting the paintbrush do the work. And then, as always, you can come in with another color and you can blend to create a highlight or a shadow. And you can really smooth it out with this. Alright, so that's a pretty basics on round. Alright, so now, everybody's favorite brush is the tiny little detail brush. There is not a single reason for you to use this until like the second to last or the last day of a project. Because you have to have a base coat on everything before you put any details. So say for instance I wanted to put some details up in this area. I would take it and I would use it just like I would with anything else. But I should not see any of this or you asking for a small brush until the end. Little tiny details. Use the biggest possible brush that you can. Alright, so now on to sponges. Everybody loves using the giant sponge. Many times you need to just use the little sponge. So, if you've painted your whole background, your whole thing's done, you want to add texture on top. So, ground painted. Alright, so when you take your sponge, as always, remember to use a paintbrush to paint it on. Paint on top. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're actually painting, never dipping. It's a sponge, it's porous. Make sure it doesn't have any extra water in it. You know this. And if I want to create some big details, I'm going to load up this paintbrush or the sponge, and I'm actually going to pick to choose one edge to kind of make that highlight on already, so I don't have to actually go on later on and do it. So this is the base color, that's the highlight, and I can even add the complementary color, which is blue, opposite side of the highlight to make a shadow. And I just have to focus where I actually put this. So I can show that texture and that sponge. The only time you should be using a small sponge is if you're sponging a small area. Okay, so make sure you know large sponge, large area, small sponge, small area. Alright, so those were our basics on our different sizes paintbrushes. Again, you have a flat, round, small round, big flat, and biggest flat. Alright people, if you have any questions, let us know.